Lego, try not to make a video about Erik Karlsson challenge. Impossible. I know we keep on making videos about this dude, but oh my gosh. First off, we've got a great juicy idea tossed around there in the Toronto Star. Secondly, Erik Karlsson in yesterday's San Jose Sharks 4-3 defeat at the hands of the Florida Panthers in a shootout scored yet another goal. And he got himself another 2 assists, putting up to 3 points on the game. He scored a point on all 3 of the goals scored by San Jose in this game, which is pretty good because he's been kind of getting involved in everything so far. Erik Karlsson is up to 18 points in 13 games played, and 10 of those points are goals. He is tied for second in the NHL in goals with Bo Horvat, who has been somewhat of a goal-scoring machine the past few years, and it's kind of freaking me out because all of a sudden his agent is going to be demanding $8+ million a year, but Karlsson is right up in there. And, I mean, look, when you have more goals than literally everybody in the NHL except for Connor McDavid and Bo Horvat, you're probably doing something right. And when it comes to total points, Karlsson is currently 4th overall. He is behind Pastrnak, he is behind Draisaitl, and he's behind McDavid. He is ahead of literally everybody else. And all of a sudden, Erik Karlsson and that 11.5 AAV contract is looking a lot more desirable. Maybe not at the full cap hit, but at the same time, he's a player that's really sort of reforming back into his old ways of being an 80+ point caliber guy. I mean, he's on pace for 60 goals and 113 points. Pace is pace, and he's not going to hit 60 goals, I think. But at the same time, it's very nice to see what Karlsson has been doing so far. Now, the reason we're making this video, all Karlsson has been scoring updates aside, is because of this piece published on the Toronto Star by Kevin McGran. 13 musings, so it's pretty much like 31 thoughts, but not 32 thoughts, but it's only 13. Why the Leafs should have seen trouble coming, plus the market for Erik Karlsson. This article was published a few days ago on Tuesday by Kevin McGran, as we said. Link will be in the description if you want to go ahead and read it. But if you go over to the 6th thought, and I'm going to say thought instead of musing because I'm just so used to saying 32 thoughts. Let's go to the 6th thought right here in this article. McGran writes here that the Sharks, I'm told, are already in selling mode, which brings us to Erik Karlsson. He looks like his old self, and he looks as if he's auditioning for a trade. He's a right-handed puck-moving defenseman who may be trending back to elite status. He's only 32, with 5 years remaining on a cap hit of 11.5. Say that in an ironic way and make a joke about how that cap hit would fit right in with the Maple Leafs. That said, if the Sharks could retain half and take someone back, making around 5.685 million and a sweetener or 2, could we see former Ottawa Senators captain Erik Karlsson end up in Toronto? It's a cliche idea, I know it is. Every big name in the NHL, under the sun and behind the moon, is going to get traded to Toronto. That's the meme, it always happens like that. But when you go over to the circumstances right here and you talk about defensemen on the team, and cap hits and salary retained and everything, as we had said, Erik Karlsson is making 11.5. If you do 11.5, divvy 2, you have yourselves a cap hit of $5.75 million a season. The guy on the Maple Leafs who is making closest to that happens to also be a defenseman. Unfortunately, he is on the LTIR. It's Jake Muzzin, making 5.625 AAV. Now, we know Muzzin is not available. It's part of the reason why the Maple Leafs at this time are actually alive and able to subsist in the current cap salary world, but Jake Muzzin's name has been tossed around a lot when Maple Leafs fans are going out there and talking about who should get traded, who could free up money. There's always Kerfoot's name thrown in there because, of course it is, but either way, Muzzin has been a conversation that has been tossed around for a while now. And if you wanted to do, let's say, a 1-for-1 trade Karlsson for Muzzin, I get it, there's some LTIR reactivation things that would have to be considered on the Maple Leafs end, but this would be a trade that financially would make sense for either side. It's just if you had to add the sweetener, because you're going to have to add a sweetener if Erik Karlsson, a guy who is literally second in the NHL in goals behind Connor McDavid, is getting traded from a team that's just kind of trying to get the best package they can for this kind of player. We had already seen other trade rumors popping up about other San Jose Sharks, whether or not a guy like Meyer or a guy like Hurdle is or isn't on the trade block. And Erik Karlsson right now has been the most important player by far. If you go over to the NHL standings and you take a look at how many goals the San Jose Sharks have scored in total, there they are. They've got 32 goals in the season, and Erik Karlsson has 18 points, meaning that Karlsson currently has a .56 involvement percentage in the NHL right now, which is absolutely crazy. Any involvement percentage over, like, 30% is kind of crazy already. It's just absolutely absurd that they have so many freaking goals, and a lot of them are coming off the stick, either directly or off an assist from Erik Karlsson himself. The only other guys that usually tend in this sort of territory are like McDavid and the usual suspects, Draisaitl, etc. But it's even crazier because Karlsson's a D-man, and I mean, I get it, the Maple Leafs and the right-handed offensive D-man experiment, it's been interesting, to say the least. You talk about Tyson Barrie, who had his stint in Toronto, and you could debate whether or not that was actually worth it. Mark Giordano is a different story because he's a lot older now, comparative to when he was scoring 70 points in a year. Now you have yourselves Erik Karlsson, who has really reformed himself in the best way possible, and it's like, yeah, no, this is what he's able to do when he doesn't have to share the spotlight with Brent Burns, when he is allowed to be the #1 guy. I'm repeating myself from the past 2 days, 3 days, weeks worth of videos about Erik Karlsson, but man, this is just amazing. And to think that a player like this could be on the move because the San Jose Sharks are just like, yeah, no, he's doing well, but we kind of don't need him at the moment. We can just hold on to half his salary and trade him away for draft picks and everything. And if you want this guy, you're going to have to add a sweetener, because if we're retaining salary, that makes it a little bit more valuable for you. So give us your prospects, give us your picks, give us anybody that is on the LTIR, because we could use it, we could tank for Bedard, and we can actually do pretty well. Referring back to the video we made a few days ago, maybe the Erik Karlsson trade itself was sort of a win-win because of whatever future bearings an Erik Karlsson Part 2 type of trade could bring for San Jose in that respect. If it's anything in the same territory as a Stützle or a Norris or whatever, then I think the Sharks would be very happy to see something like that pop up in front of them in the form of a trade. But either way, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about the idea of the Toronto Maple Leafs maybe making a trade for Erik Karlsson. I can't believe I just said that sentence. But think about it, man. A power play with Matthews, Marner, Nylander, Tavares, and Karlsson manning the point? Ooh la la, that sounds beautiful. I know some Sens fans might go out there and say, you know what, that kind of sucks, I don't want to see it. But at the end of the day, if Toronto ends up winning a Stanley Cup, and Erik Karlsson gets the hardware hoisted above his head, that all but guarantees his first ballot Hall of Fame eligibility, because honestly, even without the Stanley Cup, you could very much debate that because of how good Karlsson was in his prime, he probably already is a Hall of Famer. Probably. And plus, I mean, the finals appearance, he had went there already with San Jose. He also was in the third round another time with the Ottawa Senators, so Karlsson has had playoff success. It's just, there's no Stanley Cup. If he gets that with a team like Toronto, all of a sudden, Toronto fans become the most annoying fans in the world again. I mean, you could debate they already are, but Karlsson gets that hardware to really put himself on top of the food chain. So, I don't know, talk in the comments your thoughts about an Erik Karlsson trade over to Toronto. If you want to maybe talk about sweeteners, we actually didn't talk about that at all, so maybe just open up a conversation here about whatever trade return could be indicated there, whether it is a Muzzin or another prospect or a first or a second or maybe anybody else the Maple Leafs have in their system. I mean, if it's a Rodion Amirov or something, somebody that the Maple Leafs would really have trouble departing with because you acknowledge that Erik Karlsson is going to be probably sticking around for the next few years rather than just one. Heck, maybe you go to three-way trade route. The Maple Leafs have not been afraid to do that and have players come onto their team in 75% salary retained situations. We had seen this also with Tampa Bay, Columbus, and Detroit, I believe. That was David Savard back in the day. But if there is somewhat of a third team that could be involved somewhere here, and you're able to get Karlsson retained 50% by San Jose, and another 50% of the remaining 50% remaining retained by another team, you could realistically have Karlsson on your team for maybe 2.7 something AAV, which is not bad. Not bad at all, especially till 2027. I mean, that's a pretty cheap contract, to be fair. And if he is as good as he is right now for the remainder of that deal, then who knows? But at the end of the day, I'm just talking about this because Kevin McGran wrote about it on the Toronto Star. The link will be in the description if you want to go ahead and read it. Talk to the comments on your thoughts about the idea of a Karlsson trade over to Toronto. Do you want to do this if you're a Maple Leafs fan? If you're a Sharks fan, what would you want in return from the Maple Leafs in exchange for your current franchise borderline generational defenseman? I mean, he's playing like a generational defenseman right now. Who the heck scores 10 goals in 13 games as a D-man? That's wild. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this. But it's Juraj, and bye.